Hit for my wins, I need my ends. This life is real, if they pretend. Aim off the bench, I get it in. I get it in, I get it in. Hit for my wins, I need my ends. This life is real, if they pretend. Aim off the bench.
Yeah, Keisha, go, sorry.
No, you're absolutely right, David, and that is a very good question. I think Keir Starmer, when he got appointed as the leader party leader,
You know, everything has been overshadowed. Maybe this was. It's nice sometimes to hear something else, like hear Brexit. Whoa, Brexit! At least that is some exciting. Corbyn is back.
I swore, hit for my wins. I need my ends. This life is real, if they pretend. Aim off the bench, I get it in. I get it in, I get it in. Hit for my wins, I need my ends. This life is real, if they pretend. Came off the bench, I get it in, I get it in.
Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the late one this evening with yours truly, SYLBOURNE SYDIAL. It is the 10th of the 12th, 2020, and here we go again. And it's going to be a super show. It's going to be the best. As a matter of fact, every show is the best show. You know, somebody said to me one day that your guest, who is a special guest? I said, every guest is a special guest. But tonight we don't have special guests. We have Team Keisha, Team Keima, and Team David. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the news have been just going crazy. We cannot move away from COVID. We cannot move away from vaccine. We cannot move away from Trump. But we sort of break it down and try to tie it into a sort of level of specifics. And the specifics we're going to look at tonight is concerns over rise in COVID in South London, London, Essex, Kent. We're looking at whereby the media and tech firms are joining force to tackle, you know what they're going to tackle? These superstition, tackle these conspiracy theories. Yes, COVID vaccine myths. They're coming for you. New Style Radio in Birmingham recently got censored, I believe, from Hofcom. EU talk to reach a post-Brexit trade deal. They're saying it's going to be no deal. To be or not to be, what's the deal? But I guess it's the person who is William Shakespeare, the first person who took the vaccine with the other lady. What can I say? And Trump final day, what they're saying, a rush of federal executions. Can you imagine? Is that the way Trump is going to go out? I thought he wasn't going to go out or something, but he's going to go out with executing lots of people. But without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest, and we're just going to get straight at it and have a fantastic show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. David, Keisha, how are you guys?
All good. Thank you very much, SYLBOURNE. How are you guys? Good evening.
Good evening. It's always great to be here.
Do you guys communicate during the week or so? Or just the first time you see each other?
Mostly first time, but you know.
First time we see each other, but we communicate via WhatsApp. So, you know, keep in touch. I'm still vibing off the music, the intro.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought SYLBOURNE was going to let us in. I'd be like bumping like that.
Exactly.
Well, just to let you know, I've been campaigning for this for a long time and lobbying for breakdance to be in the Olympics. And breakdance is now in the Olympics. So, you know, I'm trying to say, you know.
So who are you representing, SYLBOURNE? That's what I want to know.
Well, I'm torn between Jamaica and the UK, but I'm going to go for Jamaica. I'm going to go for Ocherius. That's a country within Jamaica. Ocherius. I represent Ocherius at the Olympics in breakdance, and I do all of these moves. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait to see it, man. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be the best thing, you know. But listen, guys, it's been I said fantastic the last time when the lady and the gentleman when the vaccine became reality. I said fantastic, great news. Apparently in the UK, somebody took me to task and said, SYLBOURNE, I'm disappointed to hear that from you. It is not fantastic news, is it? And I said, well, it's not what I said. I said, a fantastic news, apparently. You know, apparently. You know, tongue in cheek there, you know? Then the person said, I'm disappointed in you. I said, welcome to the club. I hate to always be on everybody's good book. So I'm glad, you know. David, listen, guys. We talked about vaccine last week, and every week there's something else. We've got a new development where now the vaccine is out there and people are taking the vaccine, and people on the front line like David. David, have you taken it? Yes?
I've not been afforded the vaccination just yet. We all know that there's a limited number of vaccines that are out there at the moment, and so I'm just biding my time and waiting in the wings. I think there are people who are obviously in the hierarchy of things a lot further up the list than I particularly am. So no, I haven't taken a vaccine just yet.
Yeah, yeah, because the first person to take the vaccine is Margaret Keenan. Margaret Keenan, and I have a picture right here of her. Here she is, Margaret Keenan. That's the first lady who took the vaccine, and the other person I understand is supposed to be William Shakespeare. To be or not to be, and these persons are very elderly.
But you have to also, sorry to cut you, Sylvan, but you have to remember there were a series of people who put themselves forward, 40,000 odd for the Pfizer vaccine before, unknown people who put themselves on the line, really. So I granted, yeah, it's nice to have pictures of people taking the vaccine and the first official person in the UK. But we have to remember the people who decided to put themselves so much on the line for the sake of science and the sake of trying to get this vaccine out there as well. Sorry to cut you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. But as you rightly say as well, these are the first persons that are like officially. All other persons were being tested, and a birdie sent me an image, and this was a very concerning image, and I share it with you, and I'm sure they're not going to take me down because of this. But as you can see, yeah, there it is. No words can express that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's all tongue in cheek and fun, and it's a very difficult time for everybody, isn't it? But yeah, with the COVID vaccination itself, I mean, it's something that we should be taking very seriously. And with all this conspiracy theories, I mean, one of the things I've read this week is about the human cost of that, isn't it? So all these theorists that you get in who are deterring people from taking the vaccination for whatever reasons they've chose to, not understanding and probably haven't come to terms with the fact that then more and more people would die if they don't take it, and the whole idea why the vaccine's been rushed, normally vaccines don't come out this fast, is because we're trying to stop a pandemic. So of course, where the IT companies and the other agencies are pulling together is because there's a serious issue here that we need to be taken seriously, and government cannot afford for something like this to be taking astray. The message to be taken astray by people who are making up messages for stories for their own personal gain and whatever reputation it is.
And Keisha, what's your take on this?
Well, SYLBOURNE, I'm more concerned about what's happening in terms of what's happening in the global stage at the moment. What we're finding, or at least what we're seeing, is that the wealthy nation, which just represent only 13% of the world population, already have more than half. That's like 50%. That's my understanding in the news this week of the promised doses for the COVID-19 vaccine. So when you think about what's happening globally, the developing nations, that it means about 61% of the world population will not have a vaccine or the vaccine until year 2022. And what we're seeing then is the rushed wealthy nations, getting their hands on the vaccine, whilst other developing nations, where to a certain degree, they are significantly disadvantaged, and forgot or left behind, just based on the fact that they're more, the current nation, the wealthy nations are indeed richer, and we're seeing the disparity there. It's quite I suppose unethical and also inequitable, isn't it?
Well, David, I think if I'm not mistaken, the UK is the first so far, and I think other countries are reaching out. I think America is Trump is running to get America, and millions is going there. David, if you can take us to where we're at now, actually, with the vaccine from an official perspective. Vaccine.
So yeah, so from a vaccine point of view. As I said at the top of the program, there's a limited number of vaccines available for the UK at present, not enough at the first instance to cover the whole population. So we're working towards having other creators of vaccines be on the offering, especially for 2021. So, the hierarchy of people who are going to be at the top of the list, and we talked about that last week, but it's based on need, and it's based on your risk for succumbing to the COVID-19. So that's where we're at in terms of the vaccine. The vaccine itself, there are quite a lot of stipulations here. You've got to have 2 courses of vaccine. It's not just the one shot. And we still are, I think it's still unclear how long this vaccine will give you that assurance that you won't succumb to the virus in itself. So there's still some unanswered questions. And people just have to realize that if you're not at the top of the list, you just have to wait your turn, and it's just as simple as that, really. I think that you really have to look at the science behind it. You have to obviously respond to that as well, so people will be aware that unfortunately 2 persons had a reaction to the vaccine, not an anaphylaxis, an anaphylactide reaction, which means it was quite a low degree, and the people who have had this problem have been reported to have not had any further issues. But obviously it's going to be an advisory that the vaccine is not for people who have had anaphylaxis or serious anaphylaxis in the past, and also for pregnant women and those who are breastfeeding as well. So we will find more information as time goes by, and I'm hopeful for a smooth transition in regards to how this vaccine is rolled out to those people who are deemed most at risk. For the time being, the TS system still stays in effect, so we need to adhere to the rules locally. But as I said 2 months ago, whilst I was a little bit apprehensive in the idea that we'd have a vaccine, and it's great that we do have a vaccine. It's a step in the right direction, but we're not there yet in terms of completely unlocking, and that's why the government has and Sage advisors have been remiss to sort of say, look, it's all over, go out and celebrate for Christmas. But we're going in the right direction.
Well, one of the things though, and I'm careful of how I phrase my words, because there's an issue whereby people are somewhat feel like they cannot be critical, or they cannot question. I believe there's a difference also, and you'll agree with me, there's a difference between being critical and questioning than actually unleashing conspiracies, isn't it?
I think that's the biggest point in all of this, right?
Yeah.
So I love being challenged. That's why I like being on talk shows like this. That's why I like doing the job that I do. I love for my patients to come across and ask me questions about the things that I say to them on a daily basis, because not only does that challenge my understanding of core topics, but it also means that I can have a level of discussion and reinforcement in regards to the way that things go. And I think that the issue, as you quite rightly said, is the idea of challenging, but also putting out conspiracy. And that's the distinction that needs to be really nipped in the bud. And when you start having the idea of challenging the COVID vaccine, for example, yes, challenge the fact that this is something that's completely new. Challenge the fact that this is being rolled out in a time frame that is unparalleled to other vaccines that have taken effect. But don't make that same assumption and then leap to conspiracy theories in regards to other vaccines that are out there, particularly. So, I'm not going to regurgitate things that you've heard, but you can see there's a parallel that's been drawn from this particular vaccines to vaccines across the board, which makes no sense whatsoever and is dangerous. It's dangerous because you ignore the fact of COVID for a second. You think about all of the other vaccines that are out there that have been proved effective for multiple different reasons and multiple different rationales and have been life-saving and life-changing, and you decide to cut them off because of a difference of opinion in regards to the way that this particular vaccine has been generated and the way that it's been put forward. I think that is wrong. It's not right, obviously, and to draw that parallel is to a detriment to us as people. That's the issue.
Now, Keima, it talks about allergies. If persons have allergies, it talks about pregnant persons. It talks about all these various type of people that you eliminate from the process. I think the question that lots of people are asking is, is it safe at this time? Will I be part of the initial phase of persons separate and apart from those who are being used in the initial test, as it is phased in? Will they, and the whole issue about that they have stopped, the companies who have created like Pfizer won't be able to be sued. Would you say people are somewhat confident? Because there's a lady who is at a particular NHS trust or whatever, and she said there's a thing went around saying, "Oh, we are glad that 80% of the staff are actually happy to take this vaccine," and she said all of the person that she's talking to, none of them actually agreed to it. But you said nobody can find who is 80% of persons who are. So the question is now, is it something which is going to be rolled out irrespective of what, and therefore implications for people who do not have it and take it? And these are some of the questions out there. Keima, what's your take on that?
Well, I should really start by saying, in my opinion, just to clarify, because I don't want to get myself in trouble. Surely don't want you censored, Sylbourne. Well, in my opinion on the matter, I do think that people generally, as I said last week, it's not that they're fearful, it's just that they're more frustrated. And unfortunately, we're in a we found ourselves in a situation where we do not have much of a choice, I believe, and that's just what's going to happen. And again, it's my opinion that we will have to take the vaccine, whether we really want to or not, because it's going to be based on a condition, as we say in the news last week, where if you don't take, you won't be able to attend certain events. I don't really think people are too well, based on my observation. I don't think there's a lot of a pushback against not taking it. It's just that the fact that people don't want to be put in a position where they don't have a choice but to take it. And I think that's what happened at the moment. I want to touch slightly on what you also said or what David picked up on about the opinion piece and what's actually one of the news or radio the radio station. Yes, they were, as I think, censored recently. I think what I'm finding generally is that there seems to be a lack of clarity when people are expressing themselves regarding what is an opinion, what is a fact, what is an allegation. And I think that's where we're going wrong here. I think if you're going to be on a radio show or if you're going to be recording anything, you need to be clear exactly, is it a matter of a fact or is it a matter of an opinion? And when you're actually saying certain things that actually may be alarming and you consider it to be an opinion, because then you need to actually demonstrate the evidence that actually make you think, and based on my opinion, this is the evidence that support my opinion, or this is the evidence that support my fact, the fact that I'm presented. And people don't do this these days. People just feel that they are free, and I think maybe it's an overuse of their right of to express themselves, to just say whatever they like without the fact that there is a lot of consequences that goes with what you say. And that's why we're into this culture now where people are being censored, even if you're doing your best to actually report the good news, the news fairly. People are being questioned.
But Keima?
Well, I just wanted to touch on one thing, which is the vaccination itself. And we had an individual this week who actually had an adverse reaction to taking the vaccination. And one of the things, we have the flu virus, and I'm sure David could probably qualify this for me. The flu vaccination that people take every year. And I don't know how many people, but when you complete the form to say you want to take it, you give consent. One of the questions they ask is whether you have any allergies or anything like that, because of course that could potentially cause a reaction. So I think in terms of settling some of the concerns that people have in taking the vaccination, a lot of the vaccines out there anyway have reactions to certain conditions, and I think particularly in the flu, this COVID vaccination, it hasn't been tested on pregnant women, and obviously breastfeeding women or anything like that. So I think that is why they're giving more precaution, and to say if you are pregnant or you have a woman breastfeeding or anything, then you shouldn't be taking that. But in terms of having that reaction, a lot of the vaccines out there anyway does have that.
Yeah.
Yep, I concur. I'd say that's exactly. Sorry, I'd say that's completely true.
Yeah.
Quite obviously, we don't want to give anybody any particular medication if they've got an allergy to any of the products or byproducts of it. So that would be a screened. We have a screening questionnaire that would be taken place by the practitioner before administering something. So one of the things that is, if you've got an allergy to eggs, for example, for particular vaccines, not this one, but for particular vaccines, then you may not be eligible to take it. So that's the first thing. And the guidance is temporary guidance at the moment from the Medicine Health Regulation Authority, MHRA, in that at the moment they've issued this guidance and warning about allergies, significant allergies, to stay away from this particular vaccine. And we remember also the other thing here is that this is just for the Pfizer vaccine. There are other vaccines that the government is trying to procure. And we'll just have to watch this space in regards to the information, if anything develops over the course of time in regards to whether they can be rolled out and when they're rolled out, and again the status in regards to any particular allergies as well. But I'm not saying that they do. I'm just saying just in case, because we have to make sure that we risk assess every particular product, whether that's a vaccine or a drug, before we use it in the community. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I want to move to tonight what the Health Secretary said. The Health Secretary said tonight that they're talking about there seemed to be somewhat of an increase as well in COVID over South London. They mentioned rises in case in London, Kent, and Essex. They talk about mass testings will be rolled out for secondary school age children in that age group in the worst affected part of these regions. So is it now that young people, they've always been saying young people are not affected, or, well, they get the COVID, but they're not showing the symptoms of it now. So there's this massive testing which is going on. Is happening now. Is it whereby everyone is all go now? Schools are going to be tested now. Everyone is going, and people are now saying, why? It's just like people are now believing that they're going to start vaccinate children soon.
I don't think that's the case.
I haven't heard about that.
I don't.
It's
No, I don't think that's the case.
But I think
I don't think they're going to vaccinate.
I think it was mentioned in the news at some point. I think I read something like that, particularly in London, because London is currently tier 2, my understanding, and of course there is pressure for it not to be tier 3, and a lot of the other solutions or advice has been coming out as to what the government can potentially do, and one of it is this mass vaccination. Mass testing of children, students. As many people will know, that students some of them could be asymptomatic, or they have the virus and they don't know, and of course they could spread it to families at home, teachers, that sort of thing. So I think that is one of the reasons why that theory has come up. Whether it will be effective, I'm not quite sure. I think the question itself is, should London be put into tier 3? Should we have a tougher sanction in terms of how we plan to curb the vaccine, the pandemic there in London? Where, for example, areas in Kent, the whole of Kent is put into tier 3, and of course we had a number of MPs, Conservative MPs, who have been really upset about that, because of course it's only pockets of Kent where you have a very high rise in the COVID crisis. So I mean, it just hasn't been consistent. Of course, the London the Prime Minister has been quite consistent in what he was saying. It's obviously difficult to manage it by pockets of different areas. But London is very diverse, and it's very there's a lot of people living in London, a very dense populated area, and of course it will be a lot easier to spread. And we're seeing a very, very high number of cases, rapid number of cases each and every day. So obviously the government would have to take very tough and drastic decision if they're planning to curb it there.
I just want to say that someone, Tony Kelly, who said, "Can people call into the show?" Well, I made a facilities here for if someone wants to say something.
Hello?
Hello, hi. You're
Can
live.
hear you. Yeah.
Is it right?
Yes, you're live on the show. Yes.
Am I? Okay, hi. I literally just got the ending part of the other discussion.
Yes.
This is Tony Kelly from Birmingham calling.
Yes, sir.
And I needed to say something. I won't talk about what's being spoken about now in terms of London and what London's doing or not doing. All I'd say to that is we all must be mindful of sensationalized journalism.
Yes.
There is a lot of stuff out there which people are reporting. We're talking major newspapers here now, broadsheets and the tabloids and the television programs as well, which you need to be mindful of. Take a lot of it with a pinch of salt as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
We need to be adult in that regard. So the issue, which I think you just finished discussing because I was on a webinar elsewhere, where you spoke about the censor, the news radio station up here in Birmingham, who Ofcom. I can put you in the picture a bit more about that very quickly because I don't want to hog the show.
Yes.
On the 1st of November, the presenter Simon, who is a regular reporter on the show, has his family show, and he did what was basically a very one-sided approach about COVID-19, saying, oh, it's genocide and it's a fake and it's hoax and it's to kill off black people. And he went and got his research off the internet from some woman who was saying, there's nothing, this is not all of what it's said to be. Now, obviously, Ofcom heard about it, and Ofcom rightly were up in arms, because even if you're going to present that, you have to present both sides of the argument. So he should have had somebody else in the studio alongside what they were saying. With Ofcom and said, hey, it's going out on a black radio station. So the chair of the African Millennium Center and the New Style Radio manager both got in touch with me and said, Tony, you're out there doing a lot of work on health and well-being, because I'm a diabetes ambassador and advocate. Can you come and do with us a damage limitation exercise? Come into the studio for 2 hours and try and allay the anxieties and fears which that program gave on the 1st of November. So on the 2 Sundays after, which would have been the 1st, 8th, 15th, I was in the studio for 2 hours, and alongside me, remember I'm not a healthcare professional, was from their home, Dr. Justin Varney. He is Birmingham City Council's Chief Medical Officer.
Yes.
And Councillor Hamilton, Paulette Hamilton. She is the Cabinet Minister for Health. So they phoned in at certain times because they were supposed to, and they also did their thing on it, which gave a more balanced view about COVID-19 and the amount of deaths and so on, and the number of black people dying and all the various sorts of things. COVID is no hoax. Anybody who wants to talk about genocide and talk about, 5G and all that nonsense, are they coming from another planet or so on to talk that rubbish? I've been to funerals. I've seen people dying and people suffering from this. So I'm not buying it. And when I hear intelligent people talking along in those veins, it makes me very angry.
Yes.
Very, very angry.
Yes.
And it's almost Trump-like, as used to say, it will just disappear, it will just go away and so on. Come on, people need to wake up and be sensible. So I didn't hear the discussion itself, but I can tell you that Ofcom has now said that they're going to look into it and they're going to have to decide whether to impose a heavy sanction on them. But they've done a report, and they were quite pleased with how we did such a counter-argument and a more balanced approach to the whole thing. And at some stage, the report's going to come our way, and I'm told that I come across very favorably in the report, which Ofcom then did, having heard the other radio show, 2-hour show. So that's all I needed to say, really.
Yeah.
But we just need to be careful
what
we're saying on here, who we say. I'm afraid I'm not an expert.
Yes.
So I'm just doing it from a layperson's point of view.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Tony. Because
you're welcome.
I'm just going to talk now about the media and tech firms who have joined forces to tackle harmful COVID vaccine myths or conspiracies.
I'll be listening in.
Okay.
Listening. Well, thanks for giving me the time to
Thank you, sir.
just put both sides of the story. So
Thank you. Thank you.
You
Okay, guys. So there we had the bit which I was going to talk about with New Style Radio. Tony came in and he gave us a full shebang about the whole thing. What's your take on that? Because I'm going to tap into the latest news that talk about all the different big techs coming together to destroy all these sort of conspiracy bit. Anybody want to say anything to what Tony said earlier?
I just wanted to say that Tony's response was quite good in terms of setting out the fact that if we're going to have if we're going to have a show, we should actually have a balanced view on the matter. And if you're going to have somebody who actually against the idea of the existing of the COVID vaccine or the the pandemic, surely they had to have somebody on the show at the time to say to counter that argument. And unfortunately, a one-sided view is actually sending a certain type of a message, which is, of course, we don't want you to know the truth, as in the whole truth. It's just their truth as such, and especially spreading a type of message that is not healthy at this time. So I welcome Tony's comment.
Well, I must say that I've been inundated because I get lots of these I call them secret videos that keep circulating. And I always say to people sometimes, have you shared it on your page? Share it on your page and tag me. But nobody tends to share it on their page. But ladies and gentlemen, what has been happening is that media and tech firms, in light of what this is about the level of conspiracies, level of 5G bits, have joined forces to tackle harmful COVID vaccine myths. A coalition of new providers and tech companies has pledged to work together to tackle harmful misinformation about COVID-19 vaccines. Trusted new initiative members include BBC, Reuters, Facebook, Google, YouTube, and Twitter. Project was set up last year to combat fake news around elections, but now what it is to now deal with this. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we are being objective at the same time, but do you believe that there's got to be a sort of line which is not being crossed over, whereby people are stopped, if anything, from criticizing, questioning? There's a difference between questioning, criticizing, critiquing, than spewing out new information that you got from Mars. Well, how do you see this now? Because there's a lot of censoring, there's a lot of fact checking going on now to a next level. Yeah.
Well, the only comment I've got, because I was waiting for Keima to come in on this.
You can hear David? I don't know if you...
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that it's
Gone? Can you hear me?
Go on, Keisha.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying, SYLBOURNE, we're living in a...
Okay, we can.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me now?
On, David.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, like out.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Divide here in what perfect in what you're trying to achieve. And I think in terms of locking out or stopping people from having free speech is not the right way forward. But at the same time, in terms of promotion of sort of falsehoods, I think that's a big problem. So we find that advertisement and directive commentary to allow people to express repetitively falsehoods is allowed through social mediums. So one person says something and then that is promoted to the 10th degree, and you don't hear the opposite side. And I think that's the issue that tech companies have in terms of trying to suppress the voice so that it's not heard more prominently than it actually is. And I think that's the key here. How they do that is the key, because you can't stop people from saying whatever it is they want to say. I think platforms obviously have a duty to make sure that isn't spuriously heard more vehemently than, as I said, it's actually being spoken. So that's what their challenge is, how they stop the advertisement of falsehoods, and indeed the opposite side. I don't think just because something is right and true that you need to promote it in a manner that is to sort of detract from the actual voice in itself. So that's the key. How the companies like the Facebooks, like the Twitters, etc., stop that promotion. I think they themselves rely heavily on advertisement, rely heavily on the ability for people to self-promote themselves in order to generate revenue. And so people may not agree with this particular opinion of mine, but it's, if you want to have access to a platform, maybe that's generated through the cost of the platform. Because if you had to pay for a platform, then you may well be a bit more selective to the things that you are listening to. But whilst it is pushed on you as an individual, and you may not have the choice of what's being pushed on you, then you don't have that ability to screen things out as well. So my solution in itself would be either for the companies not to rely on advertisements as heavily as they do to generate their wealth, or to have a subscription fee for people to sign up to these particular platforms. We've enjoyed it while the good times are good, but honestly, I think that we're at a point and at a precipice now whereby a message that is to the detriment of people is being
if I
pushed
could say
way
this
too
at the
much.
same time, because we all know that there is the narrative, whereby the narrative right now is for the vaccine. The narrative right now is for leading towards that, and anything that comes against that, even if they present some sort of evidence, we are seeing where it is being stamped down. I always say, when I give my views, dissenting views or whatever, sometimes I say, should I be a part of the resistance? And it was a resistance, what? Resistance to COVID or resistance to the vaccine? So there are many people that, so, and someone just said here a while ago, here's a view which just came in, which is interesting. Mainstream media do not give both sides. They force their narrative on us. And this is why now people are actually questioning as to what should listen, and how they can sort of analyze the information. It is like somewhat people are not maybe deemed to analyze. Could that say, Keisha, Keima, are people?
No, I think it's true, and I find that very much so. Is that you can listen to sections of the media, you only hear one particular part of the argument, one side of the story.
Yeah.
And for me, the way I take it, I think we all have a responsibility to ourselves to try and have the whole picture. So listen to different various talk shows, read different newspapers, different news channels. And at that point, then you come to your own conclusion, because we have to be informed, and you have to understand that everybody's coming from a particular agenda. It could be from a commercial standpoint, for example, depending on who are paying the bills, isn't it? So then you want to spur a particular message, or you might have a political influence, isn't it? So you might be closer to a particular party, so you have to say certain things or send a particular message. So for all of us, I think, for our own well-being and our own sort of independent thoughts, and come to our own decisions and understanding the true picture, I think it's up to us really to go out there and find and look and listen to all the facts at hand, and then come to a conclusion.
I put this out there, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming on. I've got Dr. David, Burton and Keisha and Keima, twins, and we're looking at the different topic out here in regards to the vaccination, but also looking at the fact that media and tech firm have joined forces to tackle harmful COVID vaccine myths and conspiracies. Do you guys think it is conspiracies out there? Do you believe it is truths out there? Do you believe they're trying to shut it down, or do you believe that there's a suppression going on at the same time? I believe it is fair. I believe it is fair that people can be able to get a safe space to speak about these things. But I understand at the same time, if you're there's a maximum law, he who asserts must prove. And it's just like what is happening in America now with Trump. If you assert that there's been fraud, prove it. He who asserts must prove. So therefore, if people are saying that this is this vaccine or whatever like that is this, they must prove. That's how I look at it this way, and having that intelligent discussion than to throw some big things into the water. What do you guys think about that? That's just my perspective, really.
I think that's the thing.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Ladies
no,
first.
I just think that people are at different levels of understanding and knowledge on a particular subject matter. So, often when you log on to social media, you're being bombarded with different truths from various different sources, and what you're seeing now is the beginning of, a regulatory system, so there's a the regulating of freedom of speech, which, you know, to some people, it's a dangerous and futile direction to go, because a lot of time, I mean, even initially when I started on social media, I saw social media as a place or a platform that I'd like to identify as a space for me to share and to air my views, my expertise, my knowledge, you know, just my thoughts. And now I have to question, okay, that I have to be very careful, and all of us should be very careful anyway, what we actually say, because not only are we going to be fact checked, but the fact is what we are saying is actually impacting and influencing other people around us, because a lot of us now, we enjoy the idea of actually have followers. You know, historically we had friends, but now we have huge followers. And if that's the case, it means that we are influencing people, you know, young minds, based on what we say and what we believe. And that means that that inevitably, and this, what's happening is there an outlet for regulating this platform, you know, social media platform. And Keima talks, you know, well about the problem with social media as such is who's influencing it, who's pushing that particular agenda. It could be from a political bias perspective. You know, these are companies, you know, so Facebook and Instagram, they're companies that set up, you know, they have an agenda. Everybody have an agenda, and we have to be careful what platform we use, what we're saying, because clearly we're being regulated now, because that's the direction that we're going into.
Okay, let me go back to David. David, you were saying something while allowing
I was going to
gentlemen and allowing Keisha to speak. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Ladies first. Chivalry is not dead. No, what I was going to say is that sort of, if we look at, I was making a parallel for a school, for example. You have teachers in a school. If a teacher decided just to sprout a particular opinion on a particular topic that wasn't in line with the school's policies, then you'd have an issue with that, right? And I'm not saying that free speech should be dead, not at all. But at the same time, if you just have one talk show, we're talking about this talk show where a host has a platform which is just directed to falsehood, and that is a platform for a show that's listened to by people within a particular community, then I think that's where the distinction is made. It's not just one voice here. It's a voice on behalf of the community that people are listening into. And I think we can pick and choose who we follow on a particular on a particular social media. You can decide to defollow somebody. But if that's the rhetoric that's being pushed, then I think it's a big problem.
Yeah.
Well, the World Health Organization said false claims about the vaccines have been rife on social media. The world is fighting an infodemic as well as a pandemic with an overload of information. Some of it false, making it difficult for people to make decisions about their health. Now that's a key one, making it difficult for people to make decisions about their health. Now,
SYLBOURNE, I mean, I do like that concept infodemic. I think it existed a long time ago. You know, I think where we are right now is, whilst we're talking about the infodemic state that we're in, you have to understand that the people are being found, they're finding themselves in a conflict, because historically, or we always taught that we have a right to express ourselves when we and free. We have the freedom to express ourselves. It's our human right, and it's the American First Amendment. And now we have a group of people saying that it's an info what the word is again. So because as far as I'm concerned, it's always been my right. Now you're telling me it's almost like I'm doing something wrong. And I take David's point about going to school, and there's a certain requirements, certain standards that I'm sure you DocuSign, you have to agree to these terms and regulations. It doesn't apply here when it comes to social media. When I registered with Facebook, they never told me to read anything. And if I was to say something, I'm going to be fact checked, or I'm going to be censored, or somebody is going to actually question me and clarify whether my point is an opinion or a fact. It was nothing like that. So as far as I'm concerned, I had my freedom, to make use of my space. Now suddenly, not quite like that, because from the back door, you have people that are a regulatory group of people suddenly have this authoritative right to dictate what I put on my page.
Well, David sort of set out something, and David said, social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all of these guys now, it's all about making money. When I try to boost something at times, they don't boost it because of some of the contents of my stuff. They said it is not it is not fit because of some terms which I say in it as well. And I've been fact checked many times that I got so upset one time that I started to fact check them back. Who fact check? Who's the fact check back? And I started to fact check them, and I say fact checked, and it gets a bit annoying sometimes. But then, as David said, one has got to recognize now, hey, these guys are actually pandering to their business. They're pandering to who you're going to advertise to, and they're pandering to their shareholders. And therefore, if one wants to have information out there, you got to create your own space.
You really do. I think that's the key.
And the thing about creating your own space, as I've hinted earlier, is that there's going to be a group of people who's going to rise up to criticize or to regulate your space, because that's what's happened to Facebook. Remember, when Facebook started, Mark was doing whatever he likes, and then suddenly we saw him, in the US, they're attending a hearing, trying to defend himself, and you just think, this is he runs his company. Surely he should be able to run it the way how he feels he should run it. But no, suddenly the American government says, we have to regulate you. There's certain things we need to get you in check. As in, I read an article. He actually owned Instagram and Messenger, isn't it? So Facebook, so it's almost like he owns the monopoly of social media. And a regulatory body saying, "Yo, we have to question that." We have a slight problem with that. Again, and now he's under scrutiny for that.
Yeah. Well, the latest one is that YouTube is now saying that they are not going to post videos which are anti-vaccine, and also YouTube is also owned by Google, or Google owned YouTube, or whatever like that. So they're saying, is there going to be some sort of thing going on with Google with their search engine now? What I am uncomfortable with is the fact that these guys somewhat are now being somewhat like a look at Gestapo, because if you give them an inch, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Okay, and what is happening now? And David, don't go away. We're not putting you in a situation. I'm just being. You give them an inch, they take a mile, because you have given them this power now whereby they can now determine what goes to you. I looked at something today, and it wasn't on social media, and then it's all over my page today. We know about this artificial intelligence. These guys are listening to us, right? And it's a Gestapo. I know people say, "Oh, SYLBOURNE, you're going into conspiracy, man." It's
I was going to say you're going back to the Big Brother theory that I think we started like months ago.
See, I could see this coming. I had to take off the headset.
Sorry, David.
I could see this coming, so I had to take off the headset. Can you hear me?
Yeah. But
I think this, for me, it all boils down to, as I keep saying, is the advertisement thing. These companies have got to make money somehow, and I actually do think that if you pay enough, you get whatever it is that you want to get out there. We've got to find a way now of really these companies not being allowed to push information upon us in that same sense, and for them to come across in a more ethical manner by the way that the information is shared. And I think that's the key.
Yeah. Well, guys, listen, let's move on from that, because Brexit is there. Look out, Brexit's about, Beatles about, Brexit's about, or whatever like that. Is it going to be a deal or no deal? To be or not to be?
It's coming down to the wire, and the way we've got until Sunday, I believe, to decide.
Yes.
And I think ultimately it's going to be based on whether there's going to be fair trade is going to be fair, and either the UK wouldn't have a economic advantage over the EU when they leave, and that's fundamental to the decision. And of course, there's questions around fisheries, and the Brexiters will be very, very upset if if the government give in to any of its sovereignty. So there's big questions around that. The EU wants access to all waters, and from a Brexiter or sovereign point of view, the question around sovereignty is like, this is not done before. If we're leaving, we have access to our waters. You know, we govern our waters. You just can't come into our waters as and when you like. And so that's a big question around that, whether they'll come to a decision or make a decision on Friday. I'm sorry, on Sunday will be very interesting to see where that goes.
Well, just to give a sort of background, the Prime Minister went to Brussels to have a dinner. Dinner didn't go well, you know. EU talks to reach a post-Brexit trade deal unlikely to continue after Sunday, the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said, after the meeting between Boris and the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen aimed at breaking the Brexit. EU has set out measures it would take in the event of a no-deal scenario within the UK. And the plan is aimed to ensure that the UK and EU air and road connections still run after the UK stop following trade relations 31st of December. What they're saying also, Britons could be barred from EU entry on 1st of January. So we are getting down to the wire now. But, you know, at the end of the day, I recall Brexit was Brexit. Maybe that's what's happening. Brexit is Brexit. I voted Brexit.
But people now are really looking into this and goes, did we really vote for that? Because people didn't even know what they were voting for. You're coming down to the wire. We don't even know what Brexit would look like on Sunday if we do actually come out of, you know, where we already come out, but what the deal would look like, whether it's going to be the Prime Minister, they were talking about Australian style deal and a Canadian style deal. It's like the way for us, it's basic. Are we in? Do we have a deal or not? Are we going to trade at a world, you know, a WHO? What are we trading? And people still don't know what it means. None of it, you know, none of it makes sense to people.
I think unfortunately, due to COVID, it has sort of impacted all of these developments and all these different discussion, all this stuff. COVID has become the big genie in the lamp or whatever like that. This terrorist, I call COVID the terrorist. I'm sure all persons will agree to that. I'm sure no conspiracy people, everyone will agree that COVID is a terrorist. That's not any fake news.
I would not agree with you when you say all of this is impacted the COVID. You know what? Listen, this Brexit talk's been going on for like 4 years. And the fact that it goes down to the wire tells you how difficult a decision that would have been made for a lot of people, particularly the Remainers, who are thinking to themselves, well, I cannot vote to leave because I don't know what it looks like. And ultimately, people are still saying, I don't even know what Brexit looked like. What happened on the 1st of January, we know for sure that a lot of manufacturing companies, people who make things, people who have to cross the border, we're probably going to be having long queues trying to get to Dover. We know that. We know for a fact, you know, people who are traveling is going to be disruption. We know, you know, a lot of things that we could now anticipate. Trade is going to be an issue. Tariffs going to be an issue. I mean, it had like Tesco, you know, is stockpiling because, of course, there's a scare that, you know, we might not even have enough food. So all of this people...
But Keima, can you not look at it from this way, arguably, because people have been focused on so much on COVID that it's almost become like a distraction. That's why people like myself really don't know what post-Brexit looked like, because it would have probably been in the mid, had COVID not been existed, Brexit would have still be the main conversation to be had in the media, and we probably would have more clarity on what Brexit would look like, but we still don't know, and we're coming close to the wire, as you've said.
David, what's your talk on Brexit? Brexit, COVID.
No, I have to somewhat disagree with Keisha there. You know, I think it's, for me, a bit of a distraction. Just because you've got COVID going on doesn't mean everything else shuts down. Government doesn't need to shut down. Discussions don't need to shut down. They've got a Brexit negotiation committee that doesn't have to shut down. It still has a directive. It still has an objective to meet, and that should have been met way before. It's a bit like saying, well, actually, you know, because of COVID, no other doctor needs to deal with any other health problem but COVID, and we're still going to have people die unnecessarily in hospitals for other conditions. One may argue that that has happened to an extent because other services have obviously suffered an effect. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the Brexit committee was not, it didn't have any particular relevance to the COVID situation that was going down. And this, as has been pointed out previously, is something that happened before COVID. 4 years we've had of deliberating discussions, lack of people throwing their dummies out of the pram, People then going back into the pram to collect the baby and then realizing that the baby had gone down the road and not realizing what was going on. So I think just no communication between parties is an issue, and really to get to this stage is foolhardy, because it's the whole country that suffers, and to fall behind COVID is just disastrous. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think what will happen, and I said, whilst I was right on Biden, I think I'm going to be wrong on this topic. I said that there would be a deal at the 11th hour. I suppose that there won't be a deal in the way that I thought there would. I think that we'll have a no deal in some respect, and therefore after the 31st of December, we'll just continue to negotiate, just like we're going to continue to negotiate with every country in the world in regards to how we do trade. That's what's going to happen, I think. And I think that the UK is quite happy to take that approach, happy to fall behind the fact that every country is struggling because of COVID financially, etc. And so we're not really going to pay anything towards this kind of divorce bill. So that's where I think we're going to hide behind COVID, not anything more than that financially. But we could have had a successful deal, but we decided not to.
Well, David.
So we're looking at having a no deal rather than a bad deal.
I think we're going to have a break. I can't say it's going to be a no deal. I think that there's going to be some agreement loosely behind certain things, certain elements. That's my thinking. That deal in itself.
Some consistency, things around environment that you could agree on. Things around some aspects of trade. Whether employment rights may not be one of them, but there'll be some agreement on some basics. But fundamentally, is the competitive advantage is what the EU is worried about. That's what the common market was created for, to have free trade agreement between all the countries. Now, if we have one country that was part of the European Union decide to come out now, and all of a sudden have some sort of competitive advantage, that would defeat the whole purpose. And of course, it will reflect terribly for the rest of the other countries that's part of it. They will think, well, if it's easy for Britain, why shouldn't we do the same? So, that is going to be, a red line for the EU, very much so a red line for the EU. And, it cannot be seen, Britain cannot be seen to potentially have a competitive advantage.
I was going to say that's inevitable. I mean, I think a lot of other countries will follow suit.
Yeah,
I believe Greece in particular is going to be next in line.
Yeah, I think one of the things the Prime Minister has to balance now is the fact that he was loan votes. He was loan votes to give it the Brexit factor, and he's trying to make sure that at least he delivers Brexit. But David seemed to be a betting man, and David has been successful so far. Touch wood in getting
one. I mean, let's not make a big deal out of it. Just one. So let's be clear. And January 20th hasn't even arrived yet, so maybe we should actually not really call it just yet.
We lay our cards out. Is there going to be a deal or not?
I believe.
Well, I thought of what you said, David, and I think your thought on the matter makes so much sense. So I don't think there will be a deal based on what you've said earlier. It makes sense not to have a deal right now. What's the point rushing? Because we haven't in particular, I don't think have been fully informed about what Brexit looked like. And I can't see Boris actually just making a deal just for the fun of making it. He for the press, I think he'll probably he thinks in his mind, this is my opinion, clearly, that it'll be probably better off for him to come out and say, there's a deal and we could actually then negotiate in our own time, like you said, David. And I could see that happening rather than rushing and actually make a deal, because he too wouldn't want a bad deal for this country.
But could it be construed that a no deal or a deal is a deal? A no deal or a deal is a deal. Any deal is better than a no. And no bad deal. What? A deal is a deal, isn't it? No deal, no deal, deal.
We could look at it another way. Still, a no deal is a no deal.
I'm trying to create a rap. It's a rap. I'm trying to create it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to create a rap.
No, what I'm saying is,
but can no deal be a good deal too?
No deal could be a good deal, depending on what.
We have three possible options.
So you got because what is it? It falls back onto the WTO. That's what they're saying at the same time. What's a no deal, if anything. So, you know, we got to watch your space and see. But ladies and gentlemen, listen, before we wrap up here, I've got to really touch this one. We can't go without going across the states. I think Trump wants to leave his mark by his final days, a rush of federal executions. I don't know if you know about that, but what they're saying is that there is a bar in Trump final days. They're talking about President Trump days in the White House wane. His administration is facing a string of federal executions. 5 executions are scheduled before President-elect Joe Biden 20 January inauguration. Fact check there. Somebody fact check that for me. President-elect breaking with a 130-year-old precedent of pausing executions amid a presidential transition. Now, what we're seeing is that Trump is breaking all the rules at the same time, because Trump even had a meeting regarding the COVID people, and he didn't invite Biden. I think that's a bit shabby, I must say. You know, and
but he still think he won, and he still think they still stand a chance of being continuing president.
Yes. I mean, David know what the future is, right, David?
Right. Well, all I'm saying is Trump should have just given Biden his coffee and just chill.
Take a bow and leave.
You know,
But on this particular, I don't know why he wants to go down this particular legacy. That's for him to choose. I don't know who it paint in a better light, or how he feels if you paint him in a better light. Most times around this time, as far as I'm aware, it's a lot of pardons that would go down and such. But obviously, he's electing to do this. It's obviously within his right. It seems he's able to do that from a lawful point of view. But I'm saddened by it. But he's the president at the moment in time, and this is what he chooses to do. I guess that's as much as I will say on it.
President. But
looks like Sylbourne's gone.
No, I'm right here. I just I went to give a call to Trump a while ago to see what's going on, but it happened so fast. You know, Muhammad Ali say, fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And you know, one time he was talking to some people and say, I move so fast. Did you see that? I said, what is it? I move so fast, man. I went so fast. I spoke to Trump a while ago, and he said, man, Sylbourne, I got to do what I've got to do. You know what I'm saying? And what he said is that the 5 executions are to begin this week, starting with convicted killers, 40-year-old Brandon Bernard and 56-year-old Alfred Bourgeois. They are both scheduled to be put to death at a penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. And what they're saying is that if these take place, Trump will be the country's most prolific execution president in more than a century, overseeing the executions of 13 death row inmates since July of this year. So, you know,
this is very sad because, you know, a lot of people might have noticed, but Trump had pardoned a lot of
black people, as well.
People. And, you know, he's I think what he's doing now is actually doing more damage to his reputation, because one of the things that people admired, if they had anything to admire, is the fact that he pardoned a lot of black people, and that's why he had more, you know, increase of the black votes to him. Now it all now seems to flip side, because most of the people who's going to be, you know, executed, particularly that this particular guy is a black guy be this week, and you know, people are saying he doesn't need to do that. It's not a done thing. You know, in the last couple of years in presidential term, I think the last time this happened was before George Bush. When there's a transition, it's not a done thing to do, and I don't think it's necessary for him to do now, unless he's trying to appease a particular section of his his followers, you know, his voters. So I think it's very interesting to see what would happen, but I think it's just upsetting more people. And you know, people are saying, you know, I told you so. It's almost like he's a racist, and you know, we've been saying this all along. And so it's just like, I think he's lost a lot of credibility. Of course, as we talked about, he's not really engaging with the Biden team in terms of helping to resolve the COVID crisis as well. So what he's doing it's very much questionable, and it's doing more harm than good.
Well, that was Brandon, the guy there who's scheduled to die. Well, ladies and gentlemen, want to thank you so much for coming on. I think we run out of time now. I think we're trying to get our timing good. 22 minutes, 10:07. I'm talking to persons who are all hard workers. Some work from home. Some have never seen the road since COVID.
Absolutely. I have been very good, and that's why I really want to enjoy Christmas. So I don't understand why there's a increase in COVID at the moment, because I'm just frustrated by that. Whilst I've been good, some people out there partying, and I'm just not. I just can't cancel Christmas. So I do have a problem at the moment.
Yes. I mean, Keisha, Keima, you're still going out there regular?
I go out every day, but it's the mask and the hand sanitizers and being absolutely safe all the time. So if you try, you always have a mask in the car, because sometimes I still forget. When I get out of the car, that if you go into a supermarket, I need the mask, and so I keep a spare one in my bag and one in the car just in case I forget.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, I just think we're just gonna have to come to terms with the fact this is the new way of operating. We're gonna have to, even when the vaccine comes out, or it's not gonna come. Well, most of us won't get it before August or something next year. So we're just gonna have to get used to the idea in order for us to stay safe.
Well, can I give you a joke? I went to my office for the first time a couple weeks ago for about 8 months, and the lady said, "You need to keep your mask on." And I went like this, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know you had on a mask." And she said, "You thought it was my beard." No, I didn't have on the mask. It was like this. And I walked into the building and just said, "You need to put your mask on." But when I went like this, she was shocked because she thought it was my beard.
Your beard.
David, and you, how is it going, David? I mean,
yeah, well, it sounds like we just send this lady to an ophthalmologist.
Good one. That's a good one, David.
That's a good one, yeah.
No, so it's the same difference for me. I nothing has changed. The work is good, and I'm happy to see my patients back in face to face, and I'm happy that they feel secure enough to come and see me as well, and they're not, suffering with their eye conditions. Hospitals are becoming busier, but we're coming around to the Christmas season now, where obviously flu is something that we worry about, because that can bring in more people to hospital. So we're just watching the space, but yeah, it's busy.
I suppose the elderly, given that they're first in the queue, they'll probably have to take 2 vaccines at this time, isn't it? So they're probably going and get the COVID vaccine.
That's a really good point, but there has to be a delay between taking.
Oh, really? Okay.
And good vaccine. So the actual impetus to try and get people vaccinated a little bit earlier for the flu vaccine this year, particularly, you may well have held whisperings of flu vaccines from August, September time in preparation, hopefully. So there is a delay that has to be adhered to. So if you don't get the flu vaccine, you've got to wait a little while before you can have the COVID vaccine.
Yeah. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on, ladies and gentlemen, on the round table. Thank you so much to Team Keisha, Team David, Team Keima for joining us on the show tonight. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. And as well, I want to say that I have a very interesting guest, which is coming on next week, this Sunday. Well, next week is Sunday at 9 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. Jamaica time. And she is the youngest MP in Jamaica. She just won the election there. Rhoda Moy Crawford. You can see her there. She's going to be coming on. We're still working on it and everything like that. So it's interesting because you got some other young person, like the youngest senator is also a lady as well. I'm going for all of them just to really highlight some of the great things which are happening with women, but not just women, but people who are aspiring for the stars. So Rhoda Moy Crawford will be on the show this Sunday night as well. Somebody wanted to say something?
No, I just saw when she was sworn in, which was
okay.
I saw a video of her.
Okay, good. So that's going to happen. So looking forward to that as well. And I've got a raft of other guests want to come on. I think I might be interviewing someone also right after that show on 12 o'clock UK, Jamaica time, because they insist that they want me to interview them because they're launching something on the 13th So watch your space for that. We let you know. It's interesting things going on. And so all the best. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. Those on Instagram, those on Facebook. And let me finish off the show with this lovely video which I created. And I'm so excited about this video. I think it's the best thing since cooked food. And David laughing at me. And here we go, as we say, have a good night. And here we go. Bingo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Came for my wins, I need my ends. This life is real, and play pretend. Came off the bench, I get it in, I get it in, I get it in. Came for my wins, I need my ends. This life is real, can't play pretend. Came off the bench.
Yeah, Keisha, go, sorry.
No, you're absolutely right, David, and that is a very good question. I think Keir Starmer, when he got appointed as the leader party leader,
You know, everything has been overshadowed. Maybe this was. It's nice sometimes to hear something else. Like hear Brexit. Whoa, Brexit. At least that is something exciting. Corbyn is back.
I swore, came for my wins. I need my ends. This life is real,